Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. The 2024-25 season is soon upon us. So we've decided to do it's a slightly different preview, this one, basically to celebrate the fact that we are in this year's 4-4-2 season preview, or more specifically, I am in this season's 4-4-2 season preview. I just thought, why not ask the others what they would have answered to the same questions, and then I'll run you through why I answered what I did. The only caveat being that we had to submit these like 3 weeks ago. We'd only just announced Wayne Rooney as our manager, so some of them might not get printed because they are just not possible now. Especially the question about driving another player to another club. But we'll get on to that, and I'll give you my new answer instead. Joining me tonight is Joe. How's things?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm in perfect health.
Yeah.
Let's go around the rest of the group and see if that's still the case.
And Ben?
Go next to John. Who's John? John, are you there?
Yeah.
We had a last minute cancellation, didn't we? Because Mr. Alsop is deeply unwell all of a sudden. Hopefully he is not going to test positive for COVID when he takes the test he is about to take later this evening. But yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm a little bit under the weather myself, but not too bad. Glad to be here with you all again. He lied convincing.
And I'm absolutely boiling as well. Just for some clarity, we're recording this the day after Argyle beat Cheltenham Town 5-1. So our answers might change again by the time you get to hear this, but it was the only real time we could do it. So I think we just start off. I'll just go with you, Joe. The first question I was given is last season was. That's
fun.
It.
Next.
Fun.
Oh, do you want me to elaborate?
That's right. I get it a one-word answer as well. So
I thought it was fun. We had, many highs. We had many lows. It was like every good roller coaster at Alton Towers. You had fun-filled enjoyment all the way through, and it ended in style, didn't it? So what was it? 1-0 wins to end the season, to keep us up. Rotherham, Leicester and Hull, and when you go and beat the soon-to-be crowned champions of the division 1-0 at home on national television under the lights in front of a full house, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? So yeah, I think fun would be a word. It was a learning curve as well, if I was to throw in another phrase. I think plenty of people in very high profile positions at the football club probably learnt in many ways about themselves as much as they learnt about the EFL and their job and where Argyle are in the pyramid. So all in all, I think everyone would say it was a good exercise. Whether or not I've been saying the same had it not gone so well at the end of the season is unlikely. But yeah, fun and a learning curve.
I just noticed, Joe, and our audio listeners aren't going to notice this, but our visual ones might. Is that a new headset? You got a bit Madonna there.
Yeah, I'm sort of rocking the there were Formula One fans of the early 2000s. Remember Jim Rosenthal sporting one of these every Sunday, and you'll notice now a lot of the football pundits will have these on pitch side. So I thought I would model my inner gym instructor at the front of a cardio class and put on a new headset. Hopefully it brings some new luck.
Yeah, for those.
Are you Adam in disguise?
I don't have the muffin, the muffins on the ears, do I? So
no. Okay, fine. We'll let you off. Anything to add there, Ben?
No, I think the roller coaster analogy is pretty apt. It was a bit of a Hollywood season, wasn't it? If apart from the seasons, when we were in existential crisis, it's probably as sort of up and down as it could have been, as emotional as it could have been. I know, sort of going out of business is probably slightly more emotional a period, but other than that, in terms of just having a genuine normal season, there was more ups and downs than you probably would have been able to. If someone had scripted it, you'd have probably said it was a bit far-fetched, everything that happened during the course of the season, the way it went. So yeah, definitely one of the more memorable seasons in living memory.
Can we just timestamp that at, what is it, about 5 minutes into this preview? That's the first mention of existential crisis of the new season, just in case we have to wheel it out a few times later in the year.
I just went for positive. I think, we'd have liked survival a little bit sooner. But to finish above that dotted line was the aim, and that's what we achieved. So, pretty simple. None of my answers will blow you away. I'm not exactly a journalistic mastermind. I can't even say words. Never mind, write them down. Go on, Ben. We're going back to you. The big talking point is
I think there's two options. Will the big names stay at the club? Morgan Whittaker, Mike Cooper, for example. And if they do go, what's the club going to get for them, and how will that be used to strengthen the squad? But probably for me, the bigger question is, will Wayne Rooney be a success or not this season? It looks like a really tight season. Not a lot of sort of basket case teams around to look at the moment that sort of look like they're going to be easy fodder. So it's going to be a real dogfight all the way through. That the elite clubs don't look as strong as they did last year. So there could be people picking up points everywhere. We can't just take for granted that we're going to get easy results, or that the top teams are going to beat the teams in and around us. I don't think, like last season, you could kind of bank on that a little bit for some of the teams to do us a favour. Although, as we know, come the run in, the last sort of 10 games of the season, a lot of teams down the bottom turned it on. So even that's not, you shouldn't be taken for granted. So I think that that puts Wayne Rooney in a tight spot. He's really got to hit the ground running and start getting results early doors. Otherwise, we get cut adrift, and a lot of there's been a bit of a moratorium on criticism, I think, or on doubts, and people are rightly so getting behind him and giving him a chance. That might soon sort of end if sort of 5-8 games in we're cut adrift. So I think the big question is going to be whether Rooney's learned from his previous stints as a young manager, and given the right backing, as he suggested, he feels he's getting now, he can sort of turn that corner and start sort of climbing the ladder to success as a manager.
Joe, this season will be different because
it's got a different date in the calendar.
Brilliant.
Thank you. This season will be different because we're not an unknown quantity. I mean, we are in a way because we got a new head coach, but I don't think the philosophy is going to change. I don't necessarily think there's going to be too drastic a change in the style of play. Second season's always as hard. Well, second season's harder than the first, isn't it? Normally. So yeah, look, it'll be tougher. I do think the league's improved. I know we'll probably come on to that a little bit later in the questions, but I do think the league is a lot harder this year. It's probably going to take more points than it's ever taken before to stay up. So we're going to have to be on our mettle with that. But overall, I'd like to think, actually, this is me putting my Mystic Meg hat on. This season's going to be different because there's not going to be so much turmoil. I actually hope and pray. I'd say 7 rosaries and a few Hail Marys if I could. That this is a season where there isn't turmoil and we're just able to get through it without any drama whatsoever. But then again, this is Plymouth Argyle, so
yeah, if we can get through a championship season without 4 head coaches, that would be absolutely brilliant. Next one is I won't be happy unless, and I've just gone with unless we stay up. I think that's just, can't really ask for much more. It'll be a fight. It'll be slow, but we just need that like slow and steady progress year on year that we've had basically every year that Simon Hallett's been at the club. And we just need that to continue. And if we, finish one place above where we did last season, then I'd consider that a success. But and you've already mentioned it, Joe. The league this year already looks tough. It looks like it might be tougher than last year, with a manager who needs to prove a few critics wrong. And I think you've already touched on that, Ben. So no need to go over that. Ben, our key player will be. You've got quite an easy one there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, until a few weeks ago, I said Morgan Whittaker is the obvious answer, and he's proved again in sort of pre-season. I think that he's still, despite the attacking players that have come in, probably are one of our best, if not our best, attacking option. However, given that we do have 3 or 4 now quality options up front to share the load, it could be argued that our most important player will be someone at the back, whether that's Mike Cooper or whoever replaces him, or Connor Hazard if he takes the number 1 jersey, and their performance this season, or it's the centre back, one of the centre backs who sort of needs to put in a shift to keep out. If we might be putting goals in all of a sudden and struggling at the back potentially. So I'd still say Morgan Whittaker, because it's not just on the pitch his contributions, but also the off the pitch stuff could end up being quite important to the club, both short term and long term, depending on the money, the business that's done this season and the seasons to follow. So yeah, I think Morgan Whittaker on both accounts probably is the obvious answer, but maybe not as obvious as it would have been sort of 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, it must have been, because I put exactly the same thing, and for exactly the same reasons, basically, on and off the pitch. Could provide a big contribution to our season, even if he leaves this summer, which by the time this goes out, he may have. Let's hope he hasn't, unless it's for loads of money, then I don't mind. Joe, a question I struggled with because I wasn't really sure who we considered underrated, but our most underrated player is...
Tricky one, that, isn't it? Most underrated player. I'd like to think, as a fan base, we're able to see everybody's qualities and what have you, and know that not everybody is going to be as good as the other person. Most underrated player. I would probably say it's actually going to be, and I'm able to give a different answer to what you would have been when you were asked to publicize this, is Darko JB. I think having him back in that midfield is just going to have a totally different dimension to us again. I am hanging all my hopes on one performance, and that was Middlesbrough away, where he was nigh on unplayable in that game. And that's sort of what I'm looking for. And by all accounts, on the 2, I mean, I saw the Orlando Pirates game. I obviously didn't see Cheltenham, and I haven't had a chance to watch the highlights yet. But by all accounts, Darko JB's had a positive start to pre-season. And we all know how good he can be off the back of that performance. And the last one that he put in before injury, I can't remember who that was against at home, when he played a lot further forward as well. But if we can play him to his strengths, and we're not going to try and shoehorn him into a defensive role in midfield, and we just let him play forward, I think he's probably going to be the one that not everybody in the rest of the league would look at as one of our key players.
You got any thoughts on that one, Ben?
I still think Mumba's drastically underrated. I think a lot of the things he has a couple of brain farts, for want of a better word, and they're quite conspicuous. I think, was it Cov at home when he gave away the free kick in the corner for the equaliser? But equally, he's put in some really good last ditch tackles, clearances, interceptions. His when he's switched on, his defensive awareness. He's got a good leap head on him. He is underrated for what he does for the team, and it again suffers, like a lot of players, for being versatile. He might struggle to get into the team in the 4-4-2. It seems that if you looked at the pre-Cheltenham training vid, it was quite I don't know what the right word, but it was foreboding. That the last clip was Morgan Whittaker putting a right foot chipped lofted ball to the back post for Sissoko to head in, and then that just happened to transpire in the game itself. So I sort of get the sense that Wayne really wants us to play with sort of real wide man play, and I don't know if Bali Mumba fits into that kind of role, if he's more of a drive at people than cross the ball in. But in that role, from wing back, from full back, even from wide forward, he's very, very good at that, and he definitely adds a defensive element to the attack that maybe Morgan Whittaker and from the stats, Ibi Sissoko don't sort of have in their locker. So I do think that he gets a bit of a bad rep for coming in for the same price as Morgan Whittaker and not hitting the same heights. But I think he is underrated by a lot of the fan base.
Yeah, solid answer. The next one, I believe they wanted more of like a youth prospect that was gonna break through. But I'm happy for any answer here, really, Ben. I'll go back to you and I'll let Joe have his say on it as well. But one to look out for.
I'd like Caleb Roberts to get a few games. It's really hard to blood players when you're fighting and scrapping at the bottom of the league. But I thought he did okay against Leeds, the cup game he played. And then I thought he looked really good against a very athletic Orlando Pirates team, driving with the ball, took responsibility. And that's a sort of like JB, that kind of dynamism, box to box in the midfield is what you're going to need if we are playing 4-4-2 with wide men. You're going to need someone to cover a lot of ground in the middle of the park. He also looks like he's been in the gym, looks like he's bulked out, and sort of can compete maybe more effectively in a championship midfield. So I'd really, as much as the obvious answer is there to be taken. I think Caleb Roberts, if he could get a good run of games and hit the ground running, could be a real boon this year.
We got anybody different for that answer, Joe?
Saxon Early.
Yeah.
I just think, again, I'm doing the same trick. I'm pigeonholing a player on one performance, but Watford last year was outstanding from him against at the time a team that was playing with a real purpose. And I think, I know it was early in the season, it was the first away game, but I think he would, if he can put in that level of performance throughout the season. I think the big thing with Saxon, poor kid, is he's got to stay fit. And I really hope that he does. I wouldn't wish it any more for a player, to be honest. I think he's due for a young man like him. I think he's due a good run of fitness since he's come to the club. So yeah, Saxon Early for me. He's so, in horse racing we use a term where horses are. I'm going to forget the term now. I'm going to coin this. I'm going to ruin this thing now. Horses are unexposed. Horses are unexposed. And Saxon is unexposed in the team. Nobody's sure of what his capabilities are. They don't know you don't know how high the limit is, how high that sky is for him. So I've done really well to butcher that. But yeah, Saxon Early for me.
Horses wear trousers. You heard that here first. Yeah, I obviously went for Freddie Osaka. I think this is I think he's ready for like a proper breakthrough season here. Obviously another title win with the youth team as well. I think if we are going to go for this 4-4-2 and have more of your stereotypical wingers, then I think he fits into that system a lot better as well from the brief minutes I have seen him play. So here's somebody I would love to see stay in and around the first team, or get a good Football League loan in which he gets regular minutes and thrives. Joe, I might come back to you for this one. You normally good on these things. The fans think our owner is.
The fans think our owner is a positive bloke, loves the club, wants us to do well, makes tough decisions when they need to be made. Sometimes they're not always popular, but in the world of business, as a industry where Simon Hallett has been incredibly successful, you do have to make tough decisions. And I think I'll be brutally honest. He surprised me by sacking Ian Foster. I didn't think he was that kind of chairman. I thought, not in a negative way with that comment. I just thought that he said it himself. He doesn't like sacking people. and it was a decision that needed to be done, but I didn't expect it to be done. So, he's a chairman who has been incredibly important to the football club, and we will never ever be able to thank him enough for what he has done. What the future looks like for Simon Hallett and Plymouth Argyle, only the Lord knows, to be brutally honest with you. How much longer is the relationship going to last with obviously all this talk of investment coming in? How much of an impact are they going to have? But yeah, I think I've summarised it pretty well. I think the fans still love Uncle Simon. As mentioned on my appearance on the EFL debate with Gab Sutton, which is still available via all podcast platforms and on YouTube and on social media. I do think an element of trust perhaps was damaged with the whole Ian Foster situation, but I don't think it was irreparably damaged. They've certainly put their necks on the line with the Wayne Rooney appointment, but you've got to trust him because he's done so much right, isn't he? And he has been the perfect chairman at the perfect time, I think, for Plymouth Argyle from where we were when he came in. And yeah, we'll look back on his time when it's over very fondly, but I still think there's one or two little things that will happen first before Uncle Simon hands the keys over to somebody else.
The next one is one I'm keen to get both your opinions on. And when I answered this, we didn't have 4 strikers. So I've basically I answered this question twice for 442, judging on who would sign and let them pick whichever answer they wanted. And I went for Ipswich's Ali Al. I'm not pronouncing that properly. Ipswich's Ali Al Hamdi. We'll go with that. That's not how you say it, but that will do. And Josh Coburn. So, Ben, the opposition player that you would love here is?
If we're talking championship, because obviously Ipswich aren't a championship team anymore.
Yeah, it does say in brackets cheating slightly. So,
fair enough. I think the recruitment team has done excellently to cover the biggest holes in the squad quickly. I think our current areas of need that I would like to see a bit more depth, especially given that Pleggy's been away with the family, is right centre back and right back. I like both our current right backs, but I feel like if we're playing 4-4-2, we need some cover there with pace against teams that we know have got really tricky, fast wingers, where Guile alone in the form of Captain Fantastic won't necessarily be enough. So I would go for a right back with some pace and steel, someone like Trey Hume maybe from Sunderland, or a cultured right centre back, or someone who can play right centre back like Wesley Hoot from Watford. I think just based on, obviously, the obvious answers are someone like Somerville from Leeds, whatever. But in terms of what we actually need for the squad right now, someone in one of those two molds would fit for me.
Yeah, I tried to answer that slightly realistically as well, in a way that, like, I don't feel like us taking a starting 11 player out of any other championship club is really that realistic. So, and I know Josh Coburn sort of tips onto that edge a bit now under Carrick's Middlesbrough. Go on, Joe. Who would you like to see us bring in?
There's a really good lad, creative midfielder at Middlesbrough called Finn Azaz, I think his name is.
I think you're jumping the questions here. I sent you the questions early as well, and you've jumped the question.
You were asking me you were asking me which player would I like to have, and he's the sort of player I think.
I'm not asking you at all. 442 is.
I'm going to preempt what's going to happen this summer in the sale of Michael Cooper. I don't know whether or not it's going to happen or not. I have my doubts personally. But if Michael Cooper was to go, I would be taking, I think, I stand to be corrected here, I think he was League One's goalkeeper of the year last year. If not, he was certainly in the reckoning, and that's Wigan Athletic Sam Tickle, who's almost identical in the mould of Michael Cooper with career and presence, etc. The kid is the under-21s goalkeeper for England as well. I know recently he's just signed a new contract at Wigan Athletic, but I do think that was perhaps to just ensure them a little bit, because there's interest around. You know, we do it all the time, don't we? If there's people sniffing around, we give players new contracts. So just covers yourself a wee bit. So yeah, I think that's relatively realistic. I would say Sam Tickle. If you're asking me for a championship player, on what I saw last season, if we're going realistic, I thought, I can't think of what his name was now. There's a lad at QPR. I might have to come back to you on it and have a look at the team that played that night. But yeah, there's a lad at QPR who I'd taken the side, but I can't remember what his bloody name is now. So carry on. But Sam Tickle, there's my answer.
Is Sam Tickle likely to be in the Michael Cooper role of costing us a lot of money? Because
I would imagine that he won't be cheap, but you know, we will potentially, when Michael Cooper leaves, we will have money to spend. I hope that there's not going to be like a Michael Cooper tax put on every transfer we make throughout the rest of the summer, where other clubs know we have money available. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking at.
yeah, there might well be
Great for merch if we get someone in with the surname Tickle. It'll be I can see the Mr. Men sort of mock-ups and stuff on in the Argyle Life merch range already.
Absolutely. Might be a few issues with copyright and stuff there, but I'm sure I can get around it somehow.
Sam
He's got massive arms. They're not long arms, but he's got a gun, so you could do a little keeper with big arms.
Sam
nominative determinism.
Sam Field at QPR was the player I was thinking about. Defensive midfielder, 26 or 27 years of age, I think he is. He scored their goal that night, actually. I was really taken by his performance. So I don't know how realistic that would be, but you asked the question. So
yeah, fair enough. The opposition player who grinds my gears is... Now, I answered this one, but didn't actually send it to them because I didn't actually have any basis of hating anyone. I think now that Sam Morsey and Ipswich have pissed off, there isn't anyone really in the Championship that I could think of. You might jog my memory, but there was no one really that I could care enough about. So I don't know if either of you have got an answer to that one.
Maybe someone who was the big fella for Millwall who forearm smashed Kane Kessler Hayden in that game. Maybe, but there's no, I mean, especially now the Stansfield gone, he would be the pantomime villain, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
He's back at Fulham now and Birmingham are down. So on both accounts, he doesn't count.
I have one.
Oh, go on then.
Patrick Bamford.
What?
Bloke, anyone who knows me knows my thoughts on Patrick Bamford. I cannot believe the career the lad's had. Fair play to him for having the career he's had, but I wouldn't be touching him with a barge pole, personally. It just irritates me that everyone keeps talking about how good a player he is, and I just don't see it. It's just all the way through, and he's always had good transfers, and yet never really achieved anything. And it's just him. As you say, now that Sam Morsey's out of the league, and I can't moan at him not being sent off against us every week, it's going to have to be him. Outside of the Championship, it would be Dion Charles, but because it's a Championship podcast, it would have to be Patrick Bamford.
Yeah, last time I checked, Bolton didn't get promoted, did they? So
did they not?
What about
no?
I had to check there that Leeds and Patrick Bamford, because obviously Leeds won the league when they beat Leicester, didn't they, at Ellen Road? So I did just have to check whether or not they'd made it. But no, they're still in the Championship. That's right.
Apparently not. Go on, Ben.
What about Luke Cundle for following Shuey to. I mean, it's not like he's pulled up trees there, but I'm sure there'll be some people who are a bit sour about that in the fan base.
The problem with Luke Condell as well is that he's a Premier League player. So anyway, Ben, I'll come to you on this one because Joe has already answered it. The active player that I'd love to have back is, and if you could avoid saying Middlesbrough spinners as, then that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, especially if John was here, that one would have been taken, wouldn't it? I think, honestly, talking about right backs again, Kane Kessler-Hayden would be an option. He tidy in possession, quite fast. Villa obviously see something in him. He was always relatively competent here, and he's getting game time there. So I think he would be a brilliant player to have back. But it's quite a limited pool we're picking from, isn't it? In terms of players who've gone on from Argyle to greater success. The team have the club have done a really good job of sort of maximising when they sell and when they buy players in recent years. There's not many that have gone on from Argyle to greater success than they've achieved here, even loan players in some cases. So yeah, I think obviously Azaz is probably the prime candidate, but I think Kane Kessler-Hayden would strengthen the squad for sure. Yeah,
I can imagine people shouting at their headphones, going, "What's Argyle's obsession with former players?" And I know we have one, but that was the question that was posed to us. I didn't write this, but I obviously went for Middlesbrough's Vinicius. That Joe's already answered why, but absolutely fantastic player, fantastic bloke. I think I did put two as a joint close second. I think Zach Viner would be a good shout to shore up our back line, a bit of championship experience, but Naughton, I think his loan here, I basically loved him ever since because I thought he was excellent at Home Park. And then the other one would be brilliant if Michael Cooper moved on and we could get Alex Palmer back, but I can't see him dropping from playoff contending West Brom to come back to Home Park. But the active player that I'd love to have back is obviously Middlesbrough's Vinicius. The next one is one that I felt slightly harsh about answering. It's the player I'd happily drive to another club, and this has actually happened. So I opted for Tyreek Wright. I said he never really fitted how we play, and I'd just like to see him happy again, back amongst the goals and assists at a club where he'll be loved. Bradford, it'll be Bradford, and it is. He's back at Bradford for the 12th time, I believe. I'm not sure we've covered his departure really on the pod. I'm not really sure we need to overly.
You didn't want to break my heart all over again, did you?
No, absolutely not. I think the answer now would be Ben Waine, but in a loan capacity. I'd like to. He just screams Leyton Orient to me. A season at Leyton Orient. I just want to see him go and tear it up in League One and get 12 goals to the point where we go, I'm not sure he's ready for the step up for the Championship, and then we move him on to Bristol Rovers. It just has that career path written all over it for me. But I don't know if you've got a different answer, Joe.
You've just taken the words out of my mouth. I was going to change the question because I absolutely hate answering questions of who I'd want to drive to another club. I always feel horrible answering it, but I am going to twist it a little bit.
No, but there is normally always one, isn't there? There's normally always one. But we don't have that now that Tyreek's gone.
And you are right with your answer about Tyreek Wright, but it's not for any other reason other than he was just never seemingly happy in Plymouth. And when you're not happy in a place, as Morgan Whittaker found in Swansea, you can't perform at your best.
Well, exactly.
And we wish him all the best at Bradford. But I would spin the question a little bit and say the person I would happily drive to another club on loan is Ben Waine, because he needs a loan spell. He's not gonna. He's not going to learn, or it's not going to help him just sat on the bench watching Ryan Hardy, Mohamed Tajani, Mustafa Bundu, Ibrahima Sissoko, Morgan Whittaker, Callum Wright, seemingly all probably be ahead of him for those positions in an attacking capacity. And I do mean that I would love to see him. Interesting you said Leyton Orient. The club I've always had in my head about Ben Waine and a loan spell was Bristol Rovers. Because he's almost in a similar mold to John Marquis, who was relatively successful at Bristol Rovers, and I just think that sort of style of play suits him a little bit, and that's the only. Because I still want Ben Waine at Plymouth Argyle to work. I still want it to be a success. He seems like a really, really nice lad. And you really want it to work out. He's a kid who's just living his dream, basically, isn't he? He's been given this chance to come over and play in English football from the A-League. So yeah, I think it would. I'd happily. I mean, I can't drive, so it would be an incredibly illegal manoeuvre. But I would happily drive Ben Waine to a club like Bristol Rovers, someone in around that top sort of 6 to 12 in League One. I think that's sort of where he could perform at a good standard, and it would only be so that it would aid his development, so that he would come back to Plymouth Argyle a better player.
I am really hopeful that he smashes the Olympics, and then we can recoup some of that 300 grand, or the loan thing. I'm not as optimistic as you guys. I like him as much as you both do. I'm not as optimistic as you both on his prospects here, but I think a good turn at the Olympics and a loan somewhere is the best option, regardless of where his career goes after that.
I've never been remotely interested in the football at the Olympic Games, even in 2012. To be honest with you, there was far too many Welsh and Scottish and Northern Irish players in the squad, and thankfully we're no longer able to qualify. But actually, I will probably tune in to watch certainly New Zealand against France, because the French team is ridiculous for this competition. But as you say, I hope he goes out there, has a good couple of weeks, and gets a couple of goals, and who knows where that will take him.
Yeah, we don't know when this is going out. So at time of listening, he may have already done that. He may have already been on his way. He may already be on his way.
Manchester United may well have paid £45 million for him, as is their transfer policy.
Absolutely. Although their fans are celebrating the fact they're slightly more sensible now because they gave a player £5,000 a week less or something. I don't really know. So congratulations on that. I think you mentioned it there, Jay. The 2012 Olympic squad had the likes of Marvin Sordell and Ryan Giggs and Craig Bellamy, didn't it? Was it right?
It was a weird mashup, yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
Stuart Pearce was manager as well, if I remember rightly.
I quite like the idea of like a Lions tour of British players, because people would just get really, like, nationalistic boundaries would just get really, people like I mean, it does in the rugby, but I mean, it would get so parochial with the football team. But I think it would be a good laugh. It'd be a good money spinner. It'd be interesting to see. But that's just me. Yeah,
it'd be good to see. Should we get cracking? The next one is the pantomime villain will be, and my answer to this, Ben, you've already mentioned it, is Jay Stansfield. I said, obviously Exeter born and bred, the lad loves to rile up the Argyle fans despite never actually having won at home park. I expect he'll have another championship loan this season and therefore another crack of the whip. I don't know if either of you got another answer to that.
Yes.
Go on.
Saturday, 31st of August, 3 p.m, home park. As Stoke City manager Steven Schumacher walks out into a full house, he will be the pantomime villain, whether you like it or not. There will be a section of the fan base who will applaud him. There will be a section of the fan base who boo him. There will also be a section of the fan base who couldn't really give a toss. But he is going to be the pantomime villain. We all thought last year it would be Ryan Lowe. He actually got off lightly given the situation we found ourselves in at the time. But yeah, I unfortunately, and I will put my caveat to that, I do think it's unfortunate, but Steven Schumacher is going to be the pantomime villain this year.
So
we were at Stoke, weren't we, Aaron? And there was a certain chant that went up when he appeared from the tunnel, which I imagine will do the rounds at home park. He seemed to take it in quite good spirits, to be honest. I think he knows the score, but yeah, I think he might play up to that a little bit as well.
I'm more annoyed at Elliot Foster, to be honest, for unfollowing us on Twitter. I know these things. I take note. I've got your number, Elliot. I know your game. You have also been unfollowed. So thanks for your contribution. But if you don't follow us, I won't follow you back. That's the rules. He's my second pantomime villain of the season. The thing my club really gets right is, Ben, what do they really get right?
Until this season, I think they did a really good job with sort of some of the community-minded aspects around the club. I think there's been a little more. There's been some backlash on like the price of meet the manager events and things like that. And I think the best thing the club does, seemingly, not that I've got any sort of inside knowledge, but is create a good working environment for the players and the staff. I think a lot of people talk about what a positive environment it is. Lots of players have enjoyed being here and wanted to stay despite other offers. Morgan Whittaker being obviously the most prominent, but we know there's been a lot of other players who have enjoyed their time here and look on it fondly. So I think that creating a good family environment, a good sort of working environment for all the professionals, whether they're playing staff or behind the scenes, I feel like that isn't just a line, a bit. I feel like that seems to be a genuine thing the club does well, and that's probably credit to people like Neil Dewsnip and Kevin Nanscoville, who sort of are there through transitions and sort of keep that in place. So I think that's something the club does well. We're a welcoming place for young loan players, for supporting guys who come in, helping them off the pitch, etc. It seems so. I'd say that's something the club does well.
I can't add too much to what Ben's already said, but what I will add is I can't believe that Elliot Foster has just got his first shout out on the Green and White podcast by Argyle Live from Aaron, and not Elliot Turner, who is the head of strength and conditioning at Stoke City, who has unfollowed us on social media. If Elliot Foster from a former group chat that I was once a part of has unfollowed us, then I'll be greatly disappointed.
Oh yeah, I know who Elliot Foster is now. Yeah. I did think it seemed a bit weird that wasn't his name, but anyway, Elliot Turner. Elliot Foster's actually been on the pod. He actually came on once. So yeah. So
people will be astounded to know that Aaron drinks during the recording of these.
I have to get through it and not sound incredibly nervous. Although speaking to some fans in Marbella, where we have been, I don't know if anybody knows that we haven't mentioned it. A couple of fans thought we were media trained. So, I mean, Joe is slightly, but
a little bit.
Yeah, I am most definitely not. The one change that you'd make, Joe, about our club?
I would remove the £1.50 admin fee that seems to cause a few people problems. One change I would make about the club.
Fill the corners in.
Oh god, yeah. Look, there's plenty of things, aren't there, that are all generally superficial. I would probably make and this is tricky. I understand this, and without being financially savvy, I know it's very easy for somebody to come on and say it flippantly. The whole it's £27, I think I saw today, to get into a home game at Home Park this season for an adult.
Yeah.
That's £27 for an adult.
Or at least the game against Hull is, right. I don't know if they've introduced
at least the game against Hull, and then you have that adult is then not just going to come in, buy a ticket, and then not purchase anything else. They're likely to purchase food and drink and things like that. And I think just the general, and this is a broader point actually, it's not just to do with Argyle. I think there's a general broader point that sporting clubs and venues could perhaps be more accessible given the financial climate that a lot of people in this country find themselves in nowadays. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that businesses run events at a loss, but I'm sure I'm also not suggesting that Argyle are taking people for a run here or anything. I'm just saying that times are particularly difficult for a lot of people, and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that in the national news to do with the recent elections that we just had, it was highlighted that the Southwest, Devon and Plymouth in particular is a rather deprived region these days. It's a rather deprived city these days. And not everybody has 40-50 quid that they can just throw around to take themselves and a child to football and have a good day. So sport in general, I am going to make it a more general point. Sport in general needs to be a little bit more accessible to a large proportion of the country nowadays with the times we find ourselves in. That's my. I'm going to take my serious hat off now and start giving you stupid answers again.
Yeah, I know we had a very brief discussion about it in the group chat, didn't we, Ben? About the obviously Leeds have introduced this new away season ticket and reducing people's loyalty 2 weeks before the season and asking for a silly amount of money, and it just seems like another introduction by football clubs just to milk as much money as they possibly can from.
This is
go on, Joe.
a much bigger podcast one day that you can get people on from various different sports and things to discuss, because I do think this is a serious issue that needs looking at. For example, I know that the price to go and see 2020 cricket, which was once pigeonholed as the game for families, if you like, to get people into cricket, is now ridiculously expensive at a lot of counties to go and see the T20 Blast. And I just think that perhaps decision makers at certainly the top end of sport these days have just completely lost sight of where society is nowadays in a lot of areas.
And if you're getting a ticket for 2020 this year, you're 4 years late, so it should be cheaper. Brilliant. For the audio listeners, there's 2 eye rolls there. I'll take that. The next one's about season ticket prices. I mean, we've just touched on.
Yeah, I think like with either 8th highest in the championship, 10th.
Yeah, for £505 seems to be the main sum that most people played. I
mean, I understand, like Joe was saying, business is business. Argyle has a small gate we're competing against, especially with the reduction for the health and safety on the grandstand. So we are playing catch up. The owner isn't bankrolling and shouldn't be expected to. So there, it is a business. I completely understand that, but being sort of like up there in the top 10 is a bit painful. But I mean, season tickets aren't available, and people are on top of the season ticket prices. You've got people paying season tickets and evergreen, or just the evergreen, to try and get the ticket. So, that in real terms is even more expensive for a lot of folks. And that's just supply and demand. You can't blame the club for that in a sense, but it does start to add up quite quickly, especially if it's not just you going on your own, if you're taking kids or whatever it might be, and they sort of want, even if you're not getting them anything at the ground. And the bigger point than that is, it's not a right to go to the football. It is a privilege but the fact that it kind of becomes a little bit. There's no sort of community in just saying, as often happens, well, if you don't want to pay it, someone else will, because then all you get are what you end up with at the Premier League clubs, which is tourists, and you see a lot of that in the Premier League clubs, where, like Joe was sort of talking about sport in general, where if you're not there, if you miss 3 games on your season ticket, they'll take it off you because they can fill that seat with an extra 20 quid each game from a tourist, etc. So everybody draws the line in a different place. But I think the club, especially with the whole, the Project 35 and the acceptance that we are a deprived area, 35% of kids in the area, in the city, aren't perhaps having the quality of life that in the Western world we'd like them to have. I think there's a tightrope that's being walked with the kind of the responsibility and the image. And I can't, it is a business. The club have to do what they have to do to compete. We have to lament the wider picture, I think, rather than sort of say the club are doing anything particularly pernicious. But it is I think it is a question that might sort of become, especially if the club is successful this season, it might become a louder a question asked by more people if prices continue to sort of follow that trend, and the cost of living continues to follow the trend it is as well.
I will sort of just follow up what Ben's just said there. I do sort of feel that Argyle and a lot of clubs, not just in the Championship but in other leagues, have been led to the water trough by other elite sporting clubs doing what they're doing and exploiting fans' loyalty with their pricing structures. That it seems to be the norm now that to see a good product, to see top end sport, you have to pay a very premium price. As I say, this isn't a criticism of Argyle, because they've got to do what they've got to do. And whilst we are, as you say, in the top 10 for season tickets in this league, you know, all you have to do is look at the table for the 20 season tickets in the Premier League, and see what you'd be in charged at that level. So look, it's tough on people. You know, I'm one who takes advantage of the direct debit finance plan because, you know, I don't have £505 of you know, cash that I can just throw away every summer, so I have to, you know, plan it out methodically, if you like. But you know, it's just the way. As I say, this is a point for another podcast, maybe on a side project for an international break where we go into the finances of loyalty and things. But this is just the way professional sport, and as I say, it's not just restricted to Argyle, it's not just restricted to football, it's just the way it is. And unfortunately, a lot of people in decision making positions, authorities here, this is out of clubs' hands, this is at authorities and governing body level in sport, just have their heads in cuckoo land, to be frank, of where the fan bases of their sports are.
Absolutely. Back to some more trivial questions then. The club I'm least likely. The club I'm least looking forward to playing is.
I'd probably Stoke, because they started to look good again at the end of last season. They lost one of the last, what was it, 9? They were night and day between they came to Home Park and when we went to the Britannia, or whatever it's called now. And the idea of Stoke turning up, us giving Schumacher, or not us, I personally won't, but I do enjoy the pantomime of him getting a bit of stick and then them potentially sort of schooling us and him sort of waving smugly as he walks off with 3 points is sort of going to rankle. So that one alone, all the rest, it should be a good. We look like we play attractive football in pre-season so far. You know, especially the Cheltenham game once the coaching team have had some time to work on more than just sort of, you know, they were talking in the video before the game about. And I think Wayne Rooney mentioned in his post-match about, you know, they've been working on pressing the ball and positions, etc. So it should be fun to watch, even if we lose, as we were under Schumacher at the start of last season. So I don't necessarily fear. I'm looking forward to playing Pompey, but I think if we got spanked by Stoke, that would feel really bad.
Yeah, it's just going to happen though, isn't it? You sort of get used to that as an Argyle fan. You just, like you said, that little wave that he's going to give us as he goes down the tunnel. You're like, that's just
Derek Adams-esque after Bristol Rovers all those years ago.
Just absolutely going to happen. I stumped for Leeds United there. I think playing for them 4 times last season was more than enough. Not really bothered if we'd never go back to Ellen Road for a few more years. I don't mind if they go up. At away end is awful and overpriced. So rather just not. Joe, I found this one quite hard because bear in mind I had to see this 3 weeks ago. But the fans' opinion on the gaffer is. And I find it really hard to talk for myself, never mind the whole fan base.
I think the fan base are warming to Wayne Rooney. You know, I had my reservations. I still have a couple. But, you know, you've got to give the bloke a chance. I haven't seen a Wayne Rooney team play with my own eyes yet. I won't do until Cheltenham come down here in the League Cup. Well, actually, no, I tell a lie. I'll see them with my own eyes on the television against Sheffield Wednesday as I work. But with my own eyes actually in the flesh, it will be Cheltenham in the League Cup.
You'll see us in the second round of the League Cup as well, won't you? So
exactly, yeah. Yeah, I think the fan base are warming to him. You know, there are still a lot of question marks that we need answering, but the way he's carrying himself in the media, by all accounts, there were 1 or 2 people who went out to Marbella who spoke very highly of their time hanging around Wayne Rooney.
no idea who that is.
And no clue. I think there might be a YouTube vlog or something that might show a couple of people hanging around Wayne Rooney. Yeah, I just think we're warming to him, but equally the proof of the pudding will be when the real football starts on the 11th of August, probably once they've got the pleasantries out of the way at about 4:04 p.m. because games never kick off on time.
Yeah, I think one thing that you can say about Argyle fans, we don't tend to be particularly entitled. I think, as much as we hate being thought of as little old Argyle, we do appreciate that. There's you're pulling faces at me, lads. What are you pulling faces at?
Does he know a different fan base to the one I know?
I'm just gonna have to crop out that. Go and carry on.
I feel like most people are willing to give him a chance. The fact that he's not had a great career so far, and I feel like there's been a lot of repainting of history, even in the chairman sort of, I'll say interview. It's not an interview because he's employing the guy to ask him questions, but I feel like there's been a lot of revisionism about his career thus far. But we like to give anyone a chance. I feel. I don't think we're we'll sneer or look down on him because of that. Everybody's happy to give him a go, and that could be a vital part of, according to him and Pete Shuttleworth, they didn't get that at Birmingham. I couldn't, attest to the veracity of that because I didn't pay much attention, but it definitely will, I think, get it here for at least the first sort of month or two. A fair crack of the whip.
Yeah, the next question is maybe a bit too early to answer. If he left, he should be replaced by, and I opted for a Scandinavian that you've never heard of, who has some mad 2-3-5 formation, ideally. A young, up-and-coming progressive coach. Just some random bloke you've never heard of that just coaches in the Danish 12th division.
Yeah, it's always exciting when that happens, isn't it? Because you've got no idea what you're getting. It was a bit like that with Foster, to be fair, wasn't it?
I know Sam Down was very excited about the prospect of a Danish coach coming in who nobody had ever heard of. In fact, he'd actually told us after somebody had sent the link about him that he was going to be the Messiah, essentially. He's the second coming of Jesus Christ by all accounts from Sam.
And he might be. He might be for Norwich.
Yeah,
I was going to say you'll be able to tell us all about him, Aaron.
I can't wait for pre-season at Carrow Road.
Yeah, I think someone of that ilk would be ideal. If not, someone, I still hold a candle for like Will Steele or Michael Skubala, someone of that ilk, sort of like who potentially doesn't got a great track record at this level, but could be really exciting and interesting. Also could be a car crash, but whether either of those sort of guys will have the desire to come here or whether they'll interview well in the personality tests or anything else would remain to be seen.
I'll never be eternally happy until Neil Warnock takes charge of at least one more game for Plymouth Argyle. Just gonna say it.
Yeah, I think Graham would disagree with that. Joe, finish us off then. Last question. We will finish in what position?
In about 3 minutes, probably, once you've done your outro.
In which position will Plymouth Argyle finish the 2024-25 championship season?
I'm in good form today. Plymouth Argyle will finish in 19th place.
Ben?
Cool. 19th. I predict us to finish 18th last season. I figured riding the high of promotion, champions of League One. I'm not so optimistic this year. I don't see as many. I mean, you could argue we should finish above Oxford. It's hard to argue a case for being confident of finishing above many others. I can see us sort of finishing 21st or 22nd. I really think it's going to be that kind of season. And that's not because I think we'll be bad. I just think the league is so competitive. It's going to be, that's caveated by, who we bring in the rest of the season. We've still, it seems, got a good chunk of money in the bank, which might get spent well. And we might pull some rabbits out of hats and have a squad that really goes and plays. But on the balance of what we have in the door right now and looking at the strength of the league, I do think we're going to be right above or below the dotted line. I don't see us. Yeah, I don't see us doing much better than that.
And I plumped for 20th, progression of one place. I think we'll call that a night. I think that's everything. That's all the questions answered. And if you'd like to pick up the 442 season preview, you can get it from most places, shops that sell magazines like Smiths and WH Smiths and hospitals.
Tesco's, like
Tesco,
bit where they sell
Asda.
magazines.
Yeah, all the shops that have like magazine aisles, normally you can get it there. So if you don't know where that one is, Google it and it might tell you. Yeah, but I didn't give away all my answers, so there's something new in there for you to read. And obviously you can see where 442 predict us. I can imagine they're going to predict us 23rd because it's an easy prediction, isn't it? With Oxford rock bottom. But we'll soon see. I mean, you'll already know because this is coming out after the season preview. So I'm just waffling. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you're listening back to us on podcast platforms, make sure you subscribe and leave us a little review, a little 5-star would be nice, please. And if you're watching on YouTube, little thumbs up. That's about it, really. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.